Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Work, if there's a catastrophic attack tonight on the fiscal infrastructure or the financial infrastructure of this country, I do not want to go on cable news in the morning, if there is cable news in the morning, and say the administration told us that the policy is still in development. We've got to get on this. We've been talking about it for years, and as the chairman pointed out, this was an essential part of our National Defense Authorization Act a year ago. The idea that we can continue to simply defend and never have an offensive capability, I just think is ignoring this enormous threat, which we all agree. So let me ask a one-word answer question to each of you. Do we need an offensive capability in the cyber realm in order to act as a deterrent? Secretary Work.
We need a broad range of response options to include...
Do we need a offensive cyber capability to act as a deterrent?
I would say yes, sir.
Director Clapper.
Absolutely.
Admiral Rogers.
Yes.
Thank you. The second part of that is that it can't be secret. Our instinct is to make everything secret, and the whole point of a deterrent capability is that it not be secret. So I think we need to establish what we have. I suspect we do have some significant offensive capability, but part of making it a deterrent is that it has to be made public. I think another question that needs to be addressed, and I don't necessarily think it in this hearing this morning, but in this terms of the policy, we need to define what an act of war is in the cyber area. Whether hitting Sony Pictures is an act of war or the OPM, and how do you draw those lines? And I would suggest that that's got to be part of this policy definition. And I don't mean to imply, Secretary Work, that this is easy, but it's urgent. And we just simply can't defend ourselves by saying, well, it was complicated and we didn't get to it. Changing the subject slightly, Admiral Rogers, do you believe that the dispersion of responsibility in the federal government for cyber is a potential problem? It strikes me we've got agencies and departments and bureaus, I suspect you could name 15 of them if you tried, that all have some responsibility here. Do we need to strengthen Cyber Command and make that the central repository of this policy?
I would not make Cyber Command of the Department of Defense the central repository. This is much broader than just the DoD perspective, but I will say this. I have been very public in saying we have got to simplify this structure for the outside world, because if you're on the outside looking in, and I hear this from the private sector fairly regularly, who do you want me to go to? Is it I should talk to the FBI? Should I talk to DHS? Why can't I deal with you? Do I need to talk to, if I'm a financial company, should I be talking into the sector construct that we've created? We have got to try to simplify this for the private sector.
If I might add to that, Senator King, it's one of the reasons why I had a very brief commercial for just within the intelligence community of integrating the cyber picture, the common operating picture, simply from within intelligence, let alone what we do to react or protect. And that, to me, is one important thing that I have come to believe we need, along the lines of a mini NCTC or NCPC.
I would hope that would also, and that the leadership and decision making on that has to start with the White House. It has to start with the administration for an all of government approach to dealing with this dispersion of responsibility problem. I would point out parenthetically that there's been a lot of talk about China and our ability to interact with China and to respond and hold China responsible. And it's not the subject of this hearing, but the fact that we owe China trillions of dollars compromises our ability to interact with China in a firm way. It's a complicated relationship, and that's one of the things that makes it difficult. Director Clapper, do you have any idea what brought the Chinese to the table for this recent agreement with the president?
It appears that the threat of potential economic sanctions, particularly imposing them right before the visit of President Xi, I think got their attention, and that's why they dispatched Minister Meng to try to come to some sort of agreement, which is what ensued subsequently.
And I agree that it's not a definitive agreement or a treaty, but I do agree, Secretary Work, that it's a step in the right direction. At least these issues are being discussed. But countries ultimately only act in their own self-interest, and we have to convince the Chinese that it's in their interest to cut out this activity that's so detrimental to our country. Thank you, gentlemen, for your
Senator, could I
yes,
just
sir.
make one real quick comment? Just because we have not published our policy, it is so broad and encompassing, going over things like encryption, what are the types of authorities we need, does not mean that if we did have an attack tonight, we do not have the structure in place right now with the national security team to get together to try to understand who caused the attack, to understand what the implications of the attack were, and what response we should take. Those are in place right now.
But the whole point of being able to respond is deterrence so that the attack won't occur. Dr. Strangelove taught us that if you have a doomsday machine and no one knows about it, it's useless. So having a secret plan as to how we'll respond isn't the point I'm trying to get at. The deal is they have to know how we will respond and therefore not attack in the first place. Thank you all, gentlemen, for your testimony.
On behalf of the chairman, let me recognize Senator Fisher.